2019 meeting of the Finance Committee to order. Tonight will be following the published and posted agenda. It will be broadcast by Chelmsford Telemedia live and recorded for future viewing. If anyone else in the audience is recording, please let us know now. Seeing none, our first item on the agenda is approval of minutes. We have two sets of minutes, February 4th and February 7th. For February 4th, do we have a quorum? No.
I wasn't there.
I wasn't there either.
I'll have to wait till Anita comes. So we're gonna we're gonna table this to the end of the meeting because she is on our way. And then next up we have the minutes from February 7th.
Make a motion that we accept the meeting notes of February 7th as presented.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Moving right along, we have the review of the fiscal year 20 budget continuing with the fire department. With us tonight, we have the fire chief, Gary Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening.
Good evening.
Respectfully present to you my fiscal 2020 operating budget. So the fiscal 20 budget I present is $6,654,792, which is an increase of 1.56%. For the personnel budget and an expense budget of $388,000 for an overall increase of 1.75%. It's a little leaner than what I presented in past years because we've had 5 retirements since July of 2018, so we have higher level salaries being replaced with entry-level salaries. And also the budget that I present doesn't reflect future labor contract negotiations. But it does maintain our existing staffing at 63.5, which is 61 uniform firefighters and 2.5 staff members. Looking at our receivables, you'll see that 2018, we had an increase of 5% from fiscal 17, in part due to increased building and permitting activity, and what I like to call the national grid effect. If you see, 2017, we had issued 25 total propane permits. 2018, we've issued 46. If you look at the 46 that we issued when National Grid had the lockout on June 25th, we've issued 41 after that date. Now, you may recall back in October of 2018, they had an overpressurization issue in Woburn, so the Department of Public Utilities issued a moratorium on all non-emergency work. So it impacted both businesses and residential developments from getting connected to gas. And we have a development right off of Riverneck Road, Collins Circle. They built that, they were ready for occupancy, but they couldn't get the gas connection because it wasn't considered emergency work. So what do? They have to have heat and hot water, they use propane. So, good year for us. So, looking at the organizational chart, we have 52 firefighters who are assigned to 4 groups, or units as we call them. Each unit is managed by a captain. Our fire prevention division has 2 captains, and training has 1. Staffing configuration is a little different than this time last year when I presented. Due to the arbitration award that came out slightly after we met last year, I had to reassign a firefighter to Engine 2 to comply. So you'll see there's 1 less firefighter stationed at Engine 1 and 1 more firefighter, making 3 at Engine 2. And all the other substations have the 2 firefighters. That has remained the same. The National Fire Protection Association, NFPA, just recently came out with the registered fire departments in the country, a national look. According to the NFPA, there's over 27,000 registered fire departments out there. 9% are career, 5% are mostly career. 8.7, let's not round up, are career, 4.5 are mostly career, 16 mostly volunteer, and 70.8 mostly volunteer. In the state with the most registered fire departments is Pennsylvania. Taking a look at the career, mostly career category, not only is Massachusetts in the top 10, they're in the top 5, with 45% of our departments career or mostly career. Breaking it down a little more, of the 363 registered fire departments, you see that 28.7 are career, 16.3 are mostly career, and then the other 55% in this state are volunteer or mostly volunteer. If there's any questions, just feel free to jump in. Taking a look at the National Fire Protection, taking a look at the number of stations out there. When they look at the population for us, we fit in that 25,000 to 49,000 bracket. Only a third have 4, or just slightly over a third have 4 or more stations. And if you look at the calculations on the bottom, most of those are with populations closer to the 49,999 number. Again, that's not a recommendation, that's just what's out there, a look, what exists right now. Look at our station locations. We have 5 stations geographically dispersed throughout the town, which is good for response times. That was a discussion we've had last year. But one of the other things I have up here is the age of the stations. You can see we're starting to get up there in age for our engine 2. It's 63 years old. You know, engine 5 is 53 years old. The town does a very good job of maintaining these buildings, but with older buildings comes higher building maintenance costs. An example of that, we lost our generator at engine 2 last year, had to replace it, it was over $15,000. So. I'll look at our energy costs. This slide is reflective of a very cold winter and a very hot summer. We went to 2 extremes last year. You may recall last January, we tied a record for the number of days of 20 degrees or below from 1917. A record 100 years old. We tied the number of days of 20 or below. Very cold. But in August became the hottest August on record since 2016. In fact, Boston area hit 98 degrees for the first time in 35 years. So that explains some of the jumps that you see on that chart.
Why is engine 4 significantly higher than the other?
Engine
smaller?
4 has the mechanics bay, and they have the building in the
That
back.
answers my question.
Yep.
Okay.
So. Look at the energy consumption. Energy consumption with any fire department, not just Chelmsford, within any fire service is very high because of the constant opening of the apparatus doors. So it's very hard to keep it heated and cool it off. However, if you look at the center station, it's the largest station, obviously, but it's the most energy efficient when you look at energy use per square foot. And to kind of put it into context, if you look at the ice rink, the Forum, their rating is 118, and the Byram School is 63. So yes, we're very high, but this building right next door is very efficient because we had to comply with the higher energy codes when this building was built. So
Imagine how much worse it could be.
if you want to give me another station, there we go. Carry on.
That's a glass is half empty.
Huh?
Can you look at it?
Yeah, well, it's February.
Yeah.
A lot of information on there, but looking at our fire department comparables, another thing that came up last year, some takeaways from this. Chelmsford and Berwick are the only communities on this chart with more than 3 stations, which is kind of interesting when you look at Andover. Similar size and population, more square miles to cover, yet they have 3. North Andover, slightly smaller in population, more areas to cover, yet they only have 2 stations. And it's not always easy, I've said this before, to do an apples-to-apples comparison, because when you look at the budgets, you look at the numbers, you have some budgets that have an EMS component to it. Reading is a good example. Reading has, their personnel budget's a little higher because they factor in the ALS budget, yet their expense budget is very low. And the reason for that is the town of Reading centralizes both the building and vehicle maintenance for the town. So those costs aren't captured within their budget. So it's not always easy to make that comparison.
Now, the way that the layout of the town, is that, so you could have more square footage, but if you were, more of a grid or something, would it make it more efficient to have less stations or more, the ability to have less stations?
And that was the discussion that came up last year. So it's up to the town to decide what they want. The discussion last year was because of 495 Route 3, the Lowell connector, that the town is dissected. So we had that study back, I think the town manager had it back in 2007, that looked at response time. But obviously the issue last year was, if we had another study, what do we do? Do we stay with the 5 stations for quicker response times, or do you reduce them and staff up? That's the discussion. So, But I think we do pretty well for 5 stations, for staffing as far as getting to the calls on time. That's myself, the police, and Trinity, in our ALS as well. Hey, Neil. How you doing? Oops, let's go back. Taking a look at our totals for 2018, we saw an increase in over 9.5 increase in our overall responses. Medical calls continue to jump with a 4.3% increase. Investigation calls jumped largely in part to the March 13th and 14th storm that we had last year. And that's a storm that received a major federal declaration, so the town of Chelmsford could put in for reimbursements, and we're in that process right now. That was a discussion we had. And hopefully we received some, I was notified today, should be getting a decision soon. We have to get state approval, FEMA approval. If we go through those two, if we get approval at that, then it's a matter of time before we get the funding. So we're in that process now. And also, as you can see, we're a very busy year for both motor vehicle and motor vehicle accidents with injury, which takes us to the next slide. 2018 was a very tragic year on the highways and roads of Chelmsford, a year really unlike any other. There were 8 fatal accidents with 9 fatalities last year. You would have to add up the previous 4 years, 2014, 15, 16, and 17, to get the same number of fatalities that we had last year.
In highways or road? Just
Roads, both.
Chelmsford or?
Yep,
Both, huh?
both roads and the highway. So, and the question I think was asked when we met
Right,
the state, what the state preliminary figures are out,
they're up, right?
they're up by 11.
Okay.
11.
Yeah.
So,
I know someone who's a firefighter in Boston, and he said that they've had more fatalities too.
I think
Distracted driving.
if we just seen recently in the news that the Syracuse basketball coach, Jim Boheim, had a tragic accident on the highway where a pedestrian was struck. And those numbers are very high. So if you look at federal data, they're up 46% for pedestrians getting struck.
Wow.
So that is something to look at. How do you address that? So they're looking at better lighting for cars, but also looking at the sensors for braking. A lot of people have SUVs, the hoods are higher, so people aren't rolling off the hoods and, breaking falls.
They're getting hit center mass, yeah.
So that is one of the things they're looking at, improving technology and sensors, and so hopefully we have a better 2019.
Jeez Louise.
Chief, quick question, just to go back 1 second.
Yep.
We had talked about in our meeting, and you just mentioned also the federal reimbursement for the March storms.
Sure.
Is there going to be is there any potential for reimbursement for the cost of when we headed out to help with the gas explosions?
Good question. Yes, I did put in for it. In fact, for us, it was over $9,000. Where we are with that, I don't know.
Okay,
We were asked to put it in.
yeah.
They're going to submit it to City of Lawrence, and over North Andover will submit it to MEMA and FEMA, and hopefully we get something back. But you might have seen recently that Columbia is saying that they've hit the $1 billion mark for all the work. So we'll see. Can only
That
wish.
who would be reimbursing would be Columbia? It wouldn't, was it declared an emergency?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't think it was declared a federal emergency yet. It's
State
still at
emergency.
that investigative level.
Oh, okay.
So. So 2018, this slide represents the number of individual station responses and activity. For an example, you saw our previous slide, I would show the number of calls, like an alarm activation. Alarm activation would be 1 call. However, that 1 call, say if it's a alarm activation up at Middlesex Street, will involve 3 engines. So you take a look, say engine 1 is a stacked column because you have the engine over here, the ladder, and the rescue. So you have over 2,800 calls coming out of the station. Engine 2, obviously the next busiest station. So that is our breakdown. And that was something we had to look at last year when we were talking about potential station closings, and the question was asked, what are the numbers?
Is 2 the second highest based upon its location next to highways, or?
I would say that in the population up there, you
Well,
have
yeah,
your
pretty packed up there.
technology drive, research, it's an older population that drives, you have the senior center and
Oh, yeah.
Sheila
And
Ave,
then-
so.
and then we'll see what happens over on Princeton.
Yes. That's April 5th, I think they're going for that, correct? Yeah. Look at our staff vehicles. Our capital plan has reflected our request to replace our plow, which is a 2002. In our staff vehicles, we try to replace the staff vehicles when they fall into that 10 to 12-year mark. So we have 3 that fall into that right now. And finally, looking at apparatus. Our capital plan includes our request to replace frontline pieces as they hit 15 years. Back in 2007, the town realized we had an aging fleet of apparatus, and they made a very aggressive investment in the Chelmsford Fire Department. But 15 years later, we're looking to replace an engine in 2022, an engine in a brush truck in 2023, and then 2024, an engine in the heavy-duty rescue. So there's some very big ticket items out there. So I am thankful that I got the approval this past fall for our engine request. That certainly helps. I know I got to go through town meeting, but certainly some big ticket items coming down the road. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Chief, when we met and you mentioned if you get the new engine, that would give you the one that's being replaced to go into reserve. Would that then give you 2 reserves, or would one of those just could be surplus you'd get rid of?
Right now, we give us 2.
Okay.
So to give you an example, right now, our ladder truck just went out for a week. We had 1 reserve. Then one of our engines got into an accident, so now we're potentially without. So that is why it's important. We have a good maintenance program, so if the trucks aren't going out for repairs, they're being maintained. So even though it's a reserve truck, I think we had that discussion, that truck is pretty much placed in reserve status. I mean, in frontline status all the time.
Yeah.
Anything else?
On your staffing, do you have mostly a younger group, or do you have people approaching retirement? What's your,
We just had the 5 that retired, so, but yeah, there was still a group out there that can retire right now if they wanted to. But yeah, we're slowly, I think over the next couple of years, we'll have a younger group coming up to replace them. And I think that is reflective of the personnel budget and why it's, the request is a little lower because of the lower cost. Anything else? What's that?
Any other questions?
Nope.
All right. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief. Thank you.
All right.
These I have 2.
Next on our agenda, we have the review of fiscal year 20 budget for the PEG Access and Cable. With us tonight, we have Pete Padula, Executive Director of Chelmsford Telemedia. Hello, and welcome.
Hello.
Good evening.
So I previewed this with Vicki, and I know you've all probably had a chance to look at it. I don't have a PowerPoint. Probably the biggest change you'll see is we put a very big cut in our budget, 25%. The reason for this is a lot of headwinds in the industry. Unlike most town departments, we have to predict our income. We can't ask for it. I'd be happy to go into the details. There's cord cutting that we're all aware of. That's been, actually the good news in that case is that it's been quite stable in Chelmsford. The last 4 quarters have been pretty much the same. So that's great. But that's going to continue into the future. We know that. There is this FCC rulemaking change that, the long story short is they're looking to deregulate and give the cable companies latitude to cut our funding by changing it to in-kind contributions. So, for example, they could start charging us for the cost of the channels. I attended a forum last week from our national lobby group, and it was not a happy forum. But nonetheless, nobody really knows what's going to happen, and we're hoping for the best. It's going to be a town-by-town and a cable provider by cable provider situation. And the good news from that forum, which is, again, just predicting, it's quite possible that they will appeal it. I mean, they will definitely appeal it, but that will take 18 months. And so we may have to live on a very tight budget for 2 years or so until the appeal goes through, and hopefully the appeal will go through. They think they have a very good chance. I, of course, have no expertise in this matter, so I'm just reporting what they say. Regardless, we decided, or I decided, that it was a good idea to try to cut the budget and start to practice to live within our means. We have spent a lot of money over the last few years upgrading everything, so we're really good for many years into the future. And this is, an exercise in keeping the staffing and the funding the same. I'm sorry, staffing and the services the same, with a 25% cut. And we do believe we can do that. Mostly, if you look at this, the big thing that I cut is capital. So we will not be spending a lot on capital this year. The logic is that if you're happy with what we're providing now, we can provide it next year with, not too much capital investment. So I'm happy to answer any. I mean, I tried to trim in some of the other categories and get a more realistic, for me, this is the fourth year of the budget, and I'm still kind of getting used to where they go. But for us, it's really a bottom line thing anyway. But I'm happy to answer any questions about this.
No, it makes sense. The outlay would be be where you'd see the decrease.
Yeah.
That is a significant decrease, although last couple of years, you're right, we haven't been doing, the truck came in and the fit out came in for the Richardson Road and everything like that, so.
Yeah, and we improved these rooms.
Yeah, we have all the HD,
yeah.
so we all look so much better now.
Yeah. And we wired the high school with fiber so that we can do the gym now, do basketball, without with a higher quality setup, and it's easier. So we've done a whole bunch of capital improvements over the Richardson Road garage. So there's been a lot.
It was good timing.
Yeah. So, okay.
Any questions?
All right. Thanks.
Thanks, Pete.
Have a good night.
All right, record's been set, chief. All right.
Disappointed on multiple levels. Does anybody need this in written form?
I'd like
If you
it.
have enough, thank you.
So next on the agenda, as you can see, we have the review of
I
the
did
fiscal
read
year
it at
20
home,
budget
but
for the police department.
it was not
Chief James Spinney is with us this evening.
I'm good, I have mine. Thank you.
I will say actually, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I will say for the record that Chief Ryan's PowerPoint is hard to beat.
A lot of federal statistics,
He's got me again. I really tried to bring my game up, but it's really difficult. All right. So, if during the presentation, if I go too fast over something, anyone has any questions, please just let me know. I'll be glad to elaborate. Okay. So I'll start out with my goals for FY20. Apply community policing strategies and initiatives to prevent crime and focus on quality of life issues. Apply traffic-related programs to minimize motor vehicle violations, reduce accidents, facilitate traffic flow, and enhance pedestrian safety and bicycle safety. And as was already discussed, we had an unprecedented year with motor vehicle fatalities, and I will just say that driver inattention is a chronic problem now. With our mobile devices and everybody doing a lot of things other than focus on operating the motor vehicle, in my opinion, that's been the primary cause of almost all the issues we had in town last year. It's very, very tragic, but it's definitely something that is going to continue to be a problem.
Were there any location that had more incidents than others?
Well, Main Street had two, right at that corner, near Burton Lane,
Yeah.
and we had one on Westford Street, and we had obviously Route 27 at High Street, and there was a few on the highway. So the rhyme or reason, a couple of them are still under investigation, but some preliminary indications are driver inattention and speeding.
So less, under the influence and more just not paying attention.
Yeah, I think that might have been a factor in one or two of them.
Yeah.
But the two on Main Street were extreme excessive speeds and driver inattention where there's speculation that one vehicle was in the wrong lane. And one was doing it in excess of 65 miles an hour.
Oh,
So
wow.
you can understand how,
Yeah. What's the
It
speed
would
limit
happen.
down there?
30.
30.
so. But it's a straightaway road. It's a problematic road. We've done a ton of radar out there or speed enforcement, I should say, the last month and a half. And it's been noticed, but the road is extremely wide. It's straight.
Where that road is, not me.
It's straight for a long period of time,
And not a lot of lights.
well, I think it's the average amount of street lighting is
Yeah.
probably typical, but it's a straight, wide road which leads people to oftentimes accelerate faster than they should. Continue to work closely with the school department, fostering partnerships resulting in increased officer presence at all schools. I'm going to elaborate on this further, but all the elementary schools, we do not have SROs assigned to them at this point, but the sector cars visit those schools every day. They actually go in the building, and they interact with students and staff. Continue implementation of the Alice School safety protocols with school department and fire department. So everybody's aware that we went to Alice this year. It's been going great. We've begun the drills. We work closely with the fire department on this. We have done unprecedented training with the fire department and the school department over the last year. The school department has been kind enough to allow us to use the buildings when not in session to do absolute realistic drills. And you can't replace that with anything you do in the firing range. For the first time in many years, we're working alongside the fire department now in actual real-life scenarios, focusing on victims and eliminating any threats. So that's been going great. Myself and Chief Ryan are committed to it. It's going to be at the very least annual training, but probably a couple times a year. I think there's one slated to be done this spring. We did the Parker last year. I think we're going to do the McCarthy this year. Continue to build on our school resource officer program. Resource officer at the high school currently, along with a school resource officer that shares both the Parker and the McCarthy, and I'm going to elaborate that on further in a few minutes. Increased usage of social media outlets to inform the public of issues and receive feedback of problem areas in town. And continue to work with our local and regional partners regarding the ongoing opioid crisis. Currently, we have 3 programs running at the PD. Substance abuse follow-up program. If we have a reported overdose in town, I assign a detective to follow up with that family within a day or so to try to facilitate treatment. Unwanted medication pickup program. In addition to the kiosk in the police station lobby, we will go to someone's house or go to a business if they have unwanted medication. 70% of medication unused ends up on the street. So that's a real problem, and we're willing to go the extra mile and send a detective to someone's house, in a low-profile vehicle, because sometimes people get embarrassed. No questions asked, we'll pick up medication. And we still have our collaborative grant we share with Dracut, Barica, and Tewksbury. This gentleman is dealing with over 150 cases in Chelmsford alone, dealing with mental health and substance abuse. I don't know how much longer we're going to be able to maintain it.
Maintain the shared.
Yeah, exactly. This gentleman is being pulled 10 different ways a Sunday. I know Tewksbury has more cases than we do. He's juggling 150 of ours, and I'm not sure about Barica and Dracut, but I'm sure they're comparable. Extremely busy. The mental health we deal with now in town is really unprecedented. When I was a patrol officer, I might go to 1 or 2 mental health issues a month. We go almost daily now to someone in some type of mental health distress. Complete all age groups also. Not quite sure of the reasoning, other than it seems to be our society in general is there's issues that people need to deal with. The officers are at the calls longer now. Used to be a time the officers would arrive at a call and be clear in 10 or 15 minutes, 45 minutes now. Because the whole goal is to facilitate the person being well. So the officers now are digging in for longer periods of time, helping the person with the phone, talking to family and friends, talking to health professionals, calling the clinician to come out if he can, and that takes time. So when I have 5 patrol officers covering the entire town, and one is tied up for 45 minutes with this, It's not that it's not important,
Right.
but that's a draw of resources. And those numbers continue to rise. Oops, I'll figure this out eventually. All right, so the first, with regards to budgetary costs, first, I'm on personnel costs only. So you can see FY '19, $5,808,000. So my projected cost for FY '20 would be $5,934,000. It's an increase of $126,741. That's mainly due to a new collective bargaining agreement with patrol officers that took place last year. We're still awaiting a collective bargaining agreement for the sergeants. I have also had several retirements of senior personnel, and this budget has an additional full-time officer being added to the department for an additional school resource officer. So I'm going to put the brakes on right there, and I want to just really go into some detail here, because there is some misunderstanding about the role of our SROs in town. So we have made incredible headway in this town over the last few years between the police department, obviously the fire department, but more importantly, the school department. We have created a full-time school resource officer at the high school. We have created a full-time school resource officer that shares both middle schools. We have added over 100 safety cameras across the school district. I have worked on a safety audit with Dr. Lang across the entire district, as has Chief Ryan, going through every building, what's good, what's bad, what needs to be adjusted. When I went to the town manager last year with this middle school proposal for the school resource officer, I told him then, and he agreed, that the ultimate goal would be so each middle school has a school resource officer. Up till this point, I have pulled both officers from the patrol division. So I have taken officers from the street and assigned them to the school. It would be problematic for me to do this for a third, because I need 30 shifts to patrol this town. I need 30 patrol shifts to adequately cover the needs of this community. So to pull another officer out of the patrol division to assign him to the schools would be problematic for me. It would cause some overtime issues, it would cause shift replacement issues. To get us back to 54, which, by the way, in the year 2000, we had 61 police officers in this town. We currently have 53. So 19 years ago, we had 8 more officers, and the calls were less. So my request is to have a full-time officer added to the police department to bring our complement to 54, which will allow a full-time police officer to be assigned to the other middle school. Now, why the middle schools? That's been asked. Why the middle schools? Why not other schools? Because reality has shown us that the middle school level is where issues start to crop up. We have substance abuse and experimentation. We have bullying. We have internet safety, social media issues. We have some mental health issues that are cropping up at that age. We've had several instances this year alone where the school resource officer at the middle school, while he was there, responded to the nurse's office for a medical issue. Like I said, there's been mental health issues at that age group. There's a lot of pressure now on the kids with social media and the gaming, and some of these have resulted in kids acting out. So I think it's immeasurable, the payback you get from having these officers in the schools. And what people don't understand is, yes, does the officer supply a level of safety and security? Yes. Is that one of the most important things? Yes. But it's the tip of the iceberg what the officer's doing there. This officer is not standing at the front door like a guard. This officer is embedded, integrated with the school staff, almost like a teacher's aide. He helps in discussion. He talks about substance abuse. He talks about internet safety. He'll go to the caf and have a sandwich with the kids. And what does that do? It builds trust. And what does trust do? It enables information to be shared. The SRO at the high school, who's been there now a couple of years, there's been a number of incidents where students have come to her about another student in need, having trouble at home, having issues of, gee, they made some weird statements about maybe hurting themselves. That trust has been developed, so the students feel comfortable going to her and saying that. So what does she then do? She reaches out to that student, either with or without teachers, depending on the incident, and you try to solve the problem before it's a problem. That's the payback here. You alleviate, you divert an issue before it becomes one of these things we've seen across the nation. That's the payoff. And I think it's immeasurable. And I can't think of a more important place to put a police officer on a full-time basis than in one of our schools. So I'm prepared to speak at town meeting, and I'm really hoping we get the support we need to make this be a reality. To have both those middle schools and the high school covered on a full-time basis will really put us in a good place. And obviously, that officer goes hand in hand with the ALICE protocols. I have talked to both principals, Principal Parks, Principal McPhee. They absolutely love the program. The one complaint they have, that the officer leaves to go to the other school.
Chief, can you, so you mentioned, I mean, I think some of us are a little more aware than the people that are watching at home, but can you elaborate a little more about what the SRO does in the school? You know, are they in the classrooms?
So,
Do they
depending on the
schedule-
class, like the teacher, well, hopefully, if the SRO is there every day,
Yeah.
it'll be easier. But at this point, because he juggles both, they'll probably grab him a week before, ahead of time, and say, you know, Officer Sullivan, I'm doing a class tomorrow on the dangers of alcohol and whatnot. Can you come in and help me? And he will. So it's as simple as that, all the way up to the officer doing maybe a one-on-one with a small group after class, and a lot of it, again, it's the relationship building. Here's another example. The Officer Sullivan, who is the new SRO, he found out during Christmas time that there was a family in crisis that was having some issues. Officer Sullivan, on his own, I didn't even know this till after he did it, he hooked up with our PAL program. He bought Christmas presents for the family, went to the house with the presents, and made it so the kids could have an enjoyable holiday. Now, you don't put a price on that. That family and those children are gonna take that with them now. And the goal is to, again, it's information, it's trust, it's look at the police as someone you can go to, not, like back when I was in school, when I went to all the schools in this town, when the cruiser showed up, there was a problem. That's not the message anymore. So,
Usually you, or?
no, because my father he worked in town, my father worked in this town. I didn't get away with anything.
That's true.
But, you know, I really could go on and on with the examples. I can tell you that, you know, Detective Becky Tyros is at the high school. She comes to me often with stories of just students reaching out about other students. And you get ahead of it, and you get them the help they need, and if there's one thing we learned about some of these tragedies across our nation, they were on people's radar, but no one did anything about it. Or they weren't on people's radar, because everybody just kind of left it alone. You address a problem early and often, you don't get to some of these events.
This is like preventative care.
Exactly.
And do the officers get involved when, because they're, you know, especially in the middle school, there's a lot of, I don't say bullying, but there's stuff going on.
Yeah, that's
right?
come up.
You know, right, like, do they get involved in maybe being brought in as a disciplinary?
Well, no, see,
Not
that's-
discipline, but
right, I know what you're saying.
Involved in, oh, hey, you know, this kid is kind of going down the wrong path.
So maybe to help, but we absolutely do not, as a matter of fact, with the new protocols that they passed last year in the state, they cannot be a discipline.
No, I
Yeah.
mean,
So,
just
but
kinda
can they add to the conversation? Yes.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
that's why the principals helped me select the officer. When we posted the position and officers put in, I had Principal Parks and Principal McPhee in the interviews with me. It's not about seniority. It's not about the officer being the most aggressive or write the most tickets or making the most arrests. You have to, as I'm sure everyone understands here, have a certain personality
Oh, yeah.
to work in that environment. Some officers can't do it. Some don't want to do it. Officer Sullivan has been an absolute home run. I see him walking down the hall, he's high-fiving kids. Can't put a price on that, you know? You really can't.
So now for
And-
this new one, obviously, you're not gonna hire someone new.
So,
Position, you'll move someone from the
exactly,
department
so
over and then hire someone.
the ability, if this is approved, the additional police officer will allow me to draw off of the patrol division to put someone in there. It'll be, no, it's not gonna be the new person.
Right. It'll
This
be
new
someone
person
with-
will allow me to have the street covered.
Right.
So I just really wanted to just stop for a minute and really explain that, because there's some people think that the officers just like standing guard, and that would be a waste. It would achieve some things, but it wouldn't be achieving what we really want, which is fostering that
Well, there's
back
a
and forth.
large percentage of the population of Chelmsford who haven't needed to engage with the school department in a long time, let's just say.
And for
So
whatever,
their perception of what happens on a daily basis is, not couched in like seeing what is happening, or,
yeah, and if you're not directly involved, you're not gonna really know what the officer does, so I understand that. But it is worth noting, so I called all the towns around us. Barica has 4 SROs.
How are
What-
theirs, do we know how they're, when you ask the number, do we also know how they're placed?
Well, I think Barica has 1 at Shawshene Tech,
Oh,
1 in
okay.
their high school,
Okay.
probably 1 or 2 in their middle schools. Westford has 2, Westford Academy and the Neshoba Tech. Chief McEnany wants 2 more. Tingsboro has 3, the Tech, the high school, I think 1 of the middle schools, and he's trying for a 4th in this budget. Tewksbury has 2, he's trying for 2 more, for a total of 4. And this is kind of an outliner, but I found out about it. Waltham has 7. So we're not asking, this is not something outside the box crazy thinking. This is the way it is now, and I think it's a good thing. And again, I don't think it's something, I think it's resources well placed. I guess we'll leave it at that.
And I guess we've talked about before, the goal would be to eventually introduce SRO into the elementary system.
I would take whatever I could get. Now, if I can down the road get maybe 1 or 2 officers that would bounce between the elementaries.
4 of them.
I don't know how
Kinda
realistic
like
it is to say we could
social
get.
workers do.
Yeah, I mean, if I could get, maybe, again, if you could have even, bouncing between is better than not.
Yeah.
Again, the officers visit the school every day now, so there is a presence, but to have another officer that could be the umbrella of issues at the elementary, right, I do have that now, but he doesn't have the time to actually physically be there.
No.
But-
You would have someone in the system, even in a younger age, that would also be noting these things and having these discussions and starting that relationship that much earlier.
Sure. Obviously, some of the conversations are different with the younger kids, but I foresee the program only getting bigger. But I think if we could get this foundational 2 middle schools and the high school, I think it puts us in a great spot.
Sir, may I ask a question?
Yes.
In the page prior on the personnel costs for summary, the several retirements of senior personnel, how many personnel retired in the last year? Do you know?
3. So, yeah, I probably should have hit on that. I have 3 in the academy right now that are due to graduate in April, and I have 2 slated to go to the academy in April.
Now, after the academy, are they brought right in, or do they go to additional training?
Just 3 months of field training, where they ride with an officer that's undergone special training to teach. About 12 weeks. Okay, so this brings us to the staffing, and again, the staffing is a little different than last year. So obviously, 1 chief, 1 deputy chief, 7 lieutenants. The sergeants is different. The sergeants are now at 8. They were at 7. I have reestablished the detective sergeant position. This is not a new position. This is a position that existed prior to myself even being a police officer in this town. I eliminated that position about 3 years ago when I did my command staff reorganization. And quite honestly, I have found it to be problematic having the investigative division only down to 1 supervisor. So if you can imagine, the investigative division is a police department within the police department. It's got its own protocols, rules, mission, undercover responsibilities, major crime investigation, follow-ups and whatnot. So when I reduce that down to 1 supervisor, that's been problematic for me. If that person is out for any length of time, it has left gaps, some supervision gaps for us. So due to the fact that I had some supervisors retire last year, I try to take that opportunity to reorganize if I can, and it's a very minimal expense because the position is not being backfilled. So I feel confident that that position is going to maybe even save me in some areas because there might be some evening coverage that otherwise would be overtime. So in the end, it's going to be very minimal effect on my personnel line. but it's gonna pay off dividends for me with, command and control. This is gonna be a road supervisor, detective sergeant level, and that's been missing for a couple of years, and, I need it back. So instead of the detective division being 5 detectives and 1 supervisor, it's gonna be 4 detectives and 2 supervisors. So, 37 patrol officers, 9 public safety dispatchers, 3 clerical, 1 facility maintenance, 1 fleet mechanic, and 2 animal control officers. So this is just another way the police department's broken down. Again, it's broken down into 4 divisions: administrative division, investigative division, special services division. Special services oversees all community policing, traffic, major parades in town, anything of a major event that's overseen by the special services division, Lieutenant Spence. He also oversees now the school resource program, and he oversees the sergeant that's at court. We have a sergeant that's at court every day. He's our liaison to court. So he does, he assists the district attorney's office with arraignments and when we have prisoner issues and whatnot. And the patrol division is made up of 5 lieutenants, 6 sergeants, and 30 patrol officers. If this was at all legible, and I'm gonna grab Chief Ryan's organizational chart program for next year. It's a lot better, but if you squint, you could probably make out, basically, on the left-hand side are, it's the investigative division and patrol divisions. And when I became chief, my primary concern was the patrol shifts were not balanced properly with command and control. So every shift now has a lieutenant as a shift commander, a sergeant as a patrol supervisor, and patrol officers. That was out of balance when I took over, so that's why I made the modification. So now with the detective division, you have a lieutenant, the same, he's the commander of the division. The sergeant will oversee detective operations on a street level, and the detectives obviously are on the street performing their function. On the right-hand side is more of an administrative, vehicle maintenance, custodial services, clerical, traffic unit, family services unit, school resource officers. They all fall under special services.
Wait a minute, these are only 26 hits here.
Pardon me?
Okay, so why am I only counting 26?
That's
Is it shift?
That's shift.
Shift.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not, he didn't put in 4 little dots for every.
Person.
Oh, right, so
organizational chart,
I
yeah.
guess you could say, the first one is 12 to 8, 8 to 4, 4 to 12.
So, okay.
3
And
shifts.
it's a shift of, because if there's one officer on that.
So I'll make a
shift,
note
you
of
got
that
real
now.
issue, yeah.
Anita, I'll make a note of that to put that on.
I wasn't sure if you put like there was a number here that said how many or.
I
was trying to
I do
read it.
love that you were actually counting them. But
I'll have to be aware of that.
For Chief Ryan's presentation, you would have done the same thing. But you can see this one, so.
I admitted it. He's got newer computers than I do. I think I do. All right, so to quote Chief Ryan, there's a lot of information here, but it's basically just a breakdown of all personnel services. This is all driven through contractual CBA language, longevity, what steps the officers are at, et cetera. There's really no surprises in there.
Can I ask a question about
Yes.
the overtime? In 2018, there was a large number, 628,000, and in 19, it was budgeted for 400,000, and again budgeted for
Yep.
400. So was there something in particular about 2018 and overtime?
Other than the 400,000 is inadequate. That's the fact. I can't run the department on $400,000 in overtime. So I get grants. I have grants that take care of that. But that 628, I had a couple officers injured, I believe, that year, that were out for long, extended periods of
Okay.
time. That requires shift replacement. But even on an unaffected year, I'll go over $400,000.
So so under 2019, what is your actual, do you know approximately?
That hasn't come yet. I don't think I've seen the actuals 2019. No, because we're still in it.
You're still in it, but I'm like, are you
I'll be over.
You'll be over the 400,000.
I'm about 10,000 over now. Yep. So I'll be over 500,000. But I get 130,000 in grants.
Okay.
that I apply for, that I quite frankly depend on. And
That wouldn't show up in the budget.
Right, okay.
Yep.
Are those grants specifically for like that type of stuff?
Well, they're for 911 staff reimbursement, but the dispatcher's overtime comes out of the 400.
Yeah.
So that grant goes back into that line.
Okay.
But still, like, if you look at even the average of the prior 4 years, it's an average of 460 versus budgeting
Well, actually-
100,000?
No,
Right.
ignore the 400.
No, no, no,
Do
I
the
know.
average of those three.
I'm doing one,
Those
2, 3, 4.
Yeah. How could it be 460? They're all over 500.
I probably typed in the wrong number. So even, and you had grants in the prior years as well.
Yeah, I have not gone on the red in the last 4.5 years in my personnel lines. I go on the red on that line,
Fine.
but overall, I stay within my budget.
I'm just a little concerned that this might be too low.
Which one?
The overtime.
No, I think he always budgets 400, and then we get the actual later.
Yeah,
He
the
comes
actuals
up-
for 19 haven't
always
come out.
budgets 400.
That's gonna be 5 something for 19. It will be. They just haven't come out yet. That's why it doesn't say actual.
Right. Like,
See how 2019 up top just says 2019 budget,
Yep.
but the other one says actual? So 2019, see how 2018 says actual? Because the numbers came
Yeah.
out.
But you always budget 400.
Yes.
and he just said he's already over the 400,000 for
Yeah, you're about
whatever.
400.
I have
The third-
like,
3/4, right? March is.
He knows he can offset with that, on that budget line with the grants.
Okay.
So he has that marked. He knows he's gonna go over, but there are other lines in the budget need to be addressed prior to addressing that in the budget. He never goes in the red, and the total, he's able to pull from other lines of the budget in order to cover it.
Okay, but.
I understand that you're concerned that it's budgeting lower and it's coming in higher than the actual. However, I guess I don't see how else you would,
No, I understand the process, but what I don't understand is if that's the 400, if that's what you're doing, and I get it, then how much did we budget? And how
400
much
every year.
And how much were the grants that came in, where did they go?
They went to
they
cover
went
the
right into that to
overage.
cover the overage.
So the
So
grants
this is
cover,
an actual 400 or 628?
that's an actual of 400 out of the money the town gave him. And then the remaining 228 came out of budgets. I mean, count out of grants.
Came out of grants, so I don't so this is just,
This is the money that he's gonna expend. The 400 is all he will expend from the town money.
town money.
Right. Anything over that comes out of a grant.
So this number here, because
Right.
this adds into this, is not what came out of the town.
Correct. There would be an extra, about 200,000 that came from grants.
Okay.
Mhm.
So the net would be 5, so I'm looking at a total, what came out of the town would be 5, say, 4 in 2018, because you're saying that,
So I think I get
I
where
see
you're,
what
I
you're
get you
saying,
going
yeah.
here. So you want to see what the amount of grants were that came in and what the actual total on the budget was that was spent from the town.
From the town.
Not from additional grants that help
so then you
surplus the
can look at
budget.
it.
To see what the actual expenditure
Expenses
is rather
for-
than what's coming in grants.
well, in some instances, that grant money gets put back in the dispatch line. So
Mhm.
that might be the case.
Well,
Well, but
So-
I think
So if it's separated out, we see what actual expenses are, and then you can see,
Yeah, I know Darlene has that.
Okay.
Darlene has the final, what was left in each line.
yep,
Yeah, we'll have to pull that from, we'll have to ask Darlene to provide that.
yeah.
Because that'll show us, what we want to, Chief, what I think what we're trying to do is, we want to make sure that when we're looking at this line, we're not attributing more money than you're actually receiving from the town to you. Because you're receiving part of it in grants. We want to show that when you're receiving, when your 5100, 51,000, 51000 line item for the total, we want to make sure we know what the town is paying and what you're receiving in grants. So that bottom line number is not what you received from the town, it's what you received from the town and from grants.
Like, that's how much, this is what probably it costs to run it.
That's
but- and then
that's what it cost.
to
yeah,
run,
So
but
last
then you
year,
have-
so FY '18, what it cost you to run
The department.
the department was $5,655,454. But that wasn't all from the town. You got grants that were also surplusing, as a surplus well, not a surplus, but as a supplement
That came
to
in.
your budget that came in. And we want to make sure that you're getting credit for the fact that you have grants coming in, and your budget is actually lower than what's being presented
Okay,
here.
I'll have to
Yeah.
talk to her about that.
Yeah, because it looks like you have a bigger budget from the town than you actually do.
Okay.
You know what would be interesting is if there was an extra, not just for you, but you see how it goes, it shows the actuals for the years past, like 2018 actual, then the 2019 budget. But it might be interesting to have just 1 year of budget to actual, like 2018 budget, 2018 actual.
I think,
Do you see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying, but I think you showed one of the previous slides, what the increase in the budget
Yeah.
request from the actual is.
Oh,
And
okay.
so, with that, we can show that, so the personnel costs were,
Unfortunately, I just show 19, so 19 I show, no, I don't go to 18.
yeah.
I have all that data, but,
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, if you were scanning down, because then, you know, you could see where what you're basically saying is some
Yeah,
of these
working personnel
accounts, even though you were budgeted, say, for $10, you only spent $5,
That's personnel costs.
and that's how you also offset the,
To 5.
not, in addition to the grants, there are line items that you don't spend the complete budget.
I'll have to double check, but I'm pretty sure the grants are baked in here. When Darlene gives me credit for the grants,
Yeah.
she takes
have
it,
to be.
it's
There's
it's
no other
minused
way to
off
be.
the line.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's off the line.
Yeah, they have-
So
they-
this, so if you look at 2018 actual, those numbers are actual.
Yeah, but it's just, we can't see what's expense and what's, kind of like, revenue and
Mm-hmm.
expenses, right? Like, you've got an inflow, so you want to look at what your expenses are and what's offsetting it separately. So when you, it's a presentation just to kind of see, because if you have 1 year that you had a lot, say, more grants come in, it may be misleading because your line item may look lower
So, yeah, we wouldn't
than
even-
actuals.
we wouldn't even just see where the grant's being applied necessarily. We just want to see how much came in grants. So that would show what your actual expended budget was for the town side, plus what you were able to supplement with grants. This is one of the,
Well,
this is one more line,
Like
yeah.
I get 100, I'm getting 102,000 this year from
Yeah.
911, another 8 and some traffic. So it's probably, right around 120.
Okay,
Last year was 77,900 for the 911, and maybe another 10 or so in some other ones. But I can, that's all retrievable.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
then,
so for now, we'll ask Darlene just for the amount that came in last year.
Yeah.
We can look at that ourselves, and then just when we meet next year, we'll just ask for the presentation purposes. We'll ask Darlene to provide you with the amount that actually came in grants, and there can be one line added to this, so that
Okay.
the people that are looking at this can say, okay, so this is what came in, this is what came in from grants. Not, oh, this looks like the police department received $5,655,454 for personnel, when really you had grants that came in that covered a portion of that. Same for you, chief. It's just so we can show that it's not all coming from the town, it's also coming from grants that you guys are.
Good to know, we get 5 or 6 grants, and
Yeah.
that's why I just made a note myself.
Oh, definitely, yeah, so, to show everybody else that you're not just, it's not
Doing
just
all
coming
you
from the
can
town, you're doing all you can
Yeah.
to supplement the budget where you can.
Okay. I know how it feels.
Guys earlier not to let me talk.
Well, all right, so we lost that, we can move on, I guess,
Yeah.
with paper. So the next page, it breaks down expenses, so FY19 was 738,000, FY20, 767,037, an increase of 29,000. And that's pretty easily explained in the next couple pages, but before we get to that, fuel, I budgeted fuel is $2.40 a gallon, police department goes through about 44,000 gallons. The average price per gallon in 2018 was $2.33. The new equipment, part of my general budget is the purchase of, we try to get 4 SUV interceptors. They're up to about $45,000 each now. That's fully equipped.
You were only able to get 3 last year.
Right,
Yeah.
I only got 3 this current cycle because I couldn't afford 4.
Is this goes into capital?
No,
or-
No,
I,
it's not
I buy them
stupid.
every year through the general line. Makes more sense for me to do it every year, general, because it's an every year purchase. It used to be capital before, like 5, 6 years ago. Increase in fleet maintenance costs, as you can imagine, those cars are basically driving computers. There's so much technology in them with the terminals and the lighting systems and the emergency radio equipment. On the next page, you'll also see that I'm requesting some additional facility maintenance. I showed,
I took pictures and I emailed them to everybody, like,
Okay.
before the chief got up, if you want to take a look at your.
so the
photos.
front walk of
They're
the,
here now.
They're there now.
the front walk of the police station is in it's getting to be pretty rough shape. It's 15 years old. I know it's hard to imagine, but the police station is 15 years old now. And we're having some issues with the front walkway due to, in my opinion, improper installation and 15 years of weather. The front walk area is eroding,
It's going to be turned into that.
and it's becoming dangerous,
It's to
where
turn into this.
there's ruts, you could catch your foot on, whatnot.
Yeah.
All right, so we lost that. So the next page is the expenses broken down.
That's okay. The rest of it's going to come.
Electricity, that's a reduction from 65 to 50. That's a result of the police facility's been totally gone through with new lighting, all energy saving lighting modules that dim down when there's no usage. So there's a reduction there. An increase in building maintenance from 18 to 40. 10,000 of it is just the front walkway alone. And the building is starting to have problems. We're having some heating and ventilation issues. We're having parking lot problems. Lighting fixtures around the parking lot are corroded to the point where I actually have concern of some of them falling over. So the facility needs some attention. That's why I asked for an increase there. Vehicle maintenance from 52,000 to 60,000. That's again, the price of the cars fixing the vehicles has increased. A reduction in telephone. I believe the town hall is consolidating some of our phone systems, so the price is reduced to each department's needs. A reduction in contracted services from 33,000 to 28. I had been asking for $5,000 last few years for the clinicianal grant, but there's been additional grants awarded, so that $5,000 is no longer necessary. The grants are being self-sufficient to fund the position fully. And everything else is the same until you get to the bottom. Replacement equipment, that's referring to the new cruisers. 155,000 just will not do it. I can barely buy 3 at that point, so I need 180 to buy 4 fully equipped units. And quite frankly, I think that's gonna be,
The standard.
that might not make it.
That might not
I
make
might
it
actually
either.
go over the 180 slightly.
Excuse me, can I ask, the 53,990, what are the contracted services I should probably
So
know
that's
that?
like, our press person we use, Massachusetts Chiefs of Police Association, that's dues and subscriptions. The motorcycles we lease, those are contracts. Our copy machines, maintenance contracts are all under contracted services.
So many different.
But we, one of our primary ones we use now more than ever, I have a gentleman that we consult, he consults with us for all our social media, press releases. If we have a major incident, he helps us furnish press releases to go out immediately.
How do you pronounce his last name?
Guilfoyle.
Thank you.
He works.
see it.
He does a great job. He's freed up a lot of, if we have a major incident now, instead of me having to worry about going to the police station of crafting a press release, he does it for us with information we provide him.
Yeah.
And he also handles the press. So instead of them calling us, ringing the phone off the hook and dispatch, they call him, he gets the one message out. And if we have like a press conference type of thing for a major event, he coordinates that. It's a much more controlled environment.
How many cruisers do you have in total?
30. That's the entire fleet. That includes our transport van, the mobile command truck, the unmarked fleet, marked fleet, that's everything.
That's back line too.
Backline also.
Yeah.
We increased that by 1 last year because of the school resource officer. But other than that, the fleet will not increase. When we get new cars, we auction off the same amount.
Now, with the new school resource officer, will you increase the backline?
I don't think
more?
so. I think we'll be able to make it work.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to run, I want the marked unit to be there, so that's why I increased it for him. But I should be able to move things around enough where they should both be able to have one. If it's a problem, then I'll address it, but
Okay.
I don't think it's going to be necessary. And the total budget, increase of $155,778, 2.38%. And the major drivers of that, again, is the new collective bargaining for the patrolmen and the expenses we just talked about. Animal control personnel falls under me, although he is kind of a separate entity in town, he falls under the police department. No changes there, other than the cost of living for, it's a non-union position, the two of them. So, an increase basically from 106,008 to 111,2. And the next page is animal control expenses. There's been absolutely no changes there. And if there's no questions on that, then we can just go to,
Just two full-time?
yep, and what we found is we needed to, because evenings were just as problematic for animal issues, especially in the summer. Dinner time, we were getting a lot of calls, and the animal control officer was never on, and it was caused issues. So both of them, having both has really worked out very well. And they switch for each other if one is, can't make it into the day, or we swap hours if they have to, and that way it's covered all the time, and it's really worked out.
And there's no, nothing offset, like no grants offset, so.
For animal control?
Yeah,
No.
so the full budget for two is
Yep.
120.
Yep. And then I just have some statistical data for 2018. Our overall calls to service, police activity, 35,096, that's up 9%. Arrests, 248, that's down slightly from 319. I consider that a good thing.
Yeah.
2,640 citations issued, that's up about 500 from the year before. Motor vehicle stops, 5,629, that's up. That's up significantly, actually. Medical calls up about 500. Residential alarms, that's pretty steady, 391. Commercial alarms, 775, that's up slightly. Disturbance-type calls, down. Domestic disturbances, about the same, 360. B&E, so breaking and entering is an unoccupied structure. It's not like someone's home. So houses and businesses being broken into, 27, that's down 10%. Robberies, 2, so typical robberies we get in town, we're not talking mass gunmen. What we've had happen, though, a few times is we have had the bank satellite office at the Stop and Shop that has been held up. I think the last 2 we've had have been unarmed, where the person just gives a note, but we have had weapons shown there before. But I'm happy to say that we only had 2, and that was down from
Chief,
5.
You say the B&E is for unoccupied?
Yeah, so if someone breaks into your house when you're not home, that's a B&E.
Okay, have we had any where people were home?
No.
Like,
Yes, we did. We had one last year. It was during the day, and the person was home, and their front door got kicked in. It was right around, I think it was right around Thanksgiving, and they immediately took off.
Now, is that considered a B&E, or is that considered a home invasion?
That would be a burglary,
That would be a burglary, okay.
Because it's occupied.
because he's
Right,
home.
yeah, no, that's,
Yep,
yeah, okay.
Yep. Motor vehicle breaks, 42, that's down. Motor vehicle thefts, 11, that's down. Opioid overdoses, 45 non-fatals. And we had tragically 3 that were fatal. We had 4 the year before.
Jesus.
The 45 is pretty much holding. I think the year before, we might have had 47.
48 incidences, that's like 4 a month.
Yeah, but they've been sporadic. Like, we've had, I think we've had 4
You said
in
4.
February, and we had a couple in January this year. But you just, I haven't seen a pattern. I don't know if Chief Ryan has, but we're all over the place. Yep. And fraud is the new scourge. That's up. So computer fraud, scams, targeting our elderly. people receiving checks in the mail saying deposit this in your bank account. It's a check for $4,000. And then once you deposit it, send us 500 back for taxes and fees. And then the person sends the 500, and 2 days later, the $4,000 check ceases to exist because it was fake. You've won the lottery, the same type of thing. We've had instances where people have called homeowners, oftentimes, again, senior citizens, your grandchild's been injured, you need to send, $5,000 to this number. Oh, and we want you to do it with iTunes cards. I mean,
Yeah.
it's tragic, because they target people that aren't computer savvy, and,
Or it's the grandchild calling and they,
Yep.
they're hit hard times.
so that, we had 120 last year, and that's just gonna keep increasing, because it's just ever more sophisticated. It's awful. But, the good news is the banks, we work with the banks, we're always trying to, everybody add a piece to the solution. But it's pretty sad when you find out someone's, lost $10,000 of their money before they tell another family member, and then they realize they've been scammed. So,
This week I was at CVS and I bought a gift card legitimately for somebody, and when I was purchasing it, it came up, is this for somebody you know? Because that's
they're trying to,
yeah,
they're trying to get ahead of it.
so.
Oh, yeah, no,
it's
they
very-
will ask you, when you're purchasing a gift card now, they'll ask you, whether or not it's for a gift or if it's for something else.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
Like pharmacies now, if they see someone older come in and buying a whole bunch,
Yep.
they'll go. And finally, one of these recent things we're seeing now is people are now using homeless people to go into the bank as mules to cash fraudulent checks. So what they're doing is they're forging checks. They're very sophisticated. These people are forging business checks, and they're very realistic. They're rounding up homeless people, buying them a nice shirt to put on, giving them the check to go into the bank, and if the cruisers show up,
They take off.
they take off.
Yep.
The poor soul inside can get arrested. If the person comes out with money, they might throw $50 at them, and then they walk off with $2,000. So we actually made arrests up at Drum Hill for that a couple months ago. And it's unbelievable. They were from Rhode Island.
Long way from
So-
home.
The banks are aware of it, but it's tough, because they get very sophisticated. They put skimmers on the ATM machines. You put your card in there, it reads it.
Have we had skimmers in town?
We did last year. There was one, I think the Exxon on the Drum Hill Low Line had a skimmer in it, and it was there for 3 or 4 days, and it caused a lot of havoc. So they're out there. That's why whenever you use the ATM, you really should physically look at the device.
Oh, yeah,
Tug on it,
I tug on it.
I tug on it, yeah.
and then cover your hand when you put your code in,
Yeah.
even if it has a little hood. Because there's usually a pin camera
pin
watching
camera.
you. So cover your hand and add fake digits.
Oh,
So when
okay.
you do your digits,
Keep moving.
simulate
That's
3 or
brilliant.
4 more.
Okay.
Just, I do that. People
Before
are probably
or
looking at me
after.
going, how is he remembering that passcode? I will touch the pad a dozen more times.
You can still touch it after you hit
You
your
can
code.
barely touch it. Like, I
Yeah.
just touch it just enough where it looks like I am,
Yeah.
but,
Because it's not someone listening. They're not listening to beeps. They're just,
exactly.
yeah.
It's all timestamped.
Yeah.
That's the way it works.
Right.
It timestamps when it
Yeah.
takes the code, and then the pinhole camera will watch the keypad to see what the code was entered.
Right,
And so
yeah.
it's-
Or better yet, a lot of these banks, like Bank of America is doing a thing where you initiate the ATM withdrawal through the app on your phone, and then you go, and then you take your phone, and it has a near-field communication. You put your phone on and pull it away.
But the guy in the parking lot's picking up the near field code.
No, you have to be close, you have to touch it. It's like one of those touch ones, yeah.
Well, there's a
Now,
way.
if the guy's standing like 2 feet from you, then that's your own issue.
Yeah, well, there's a way to defeat it, they will. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the sad part of it, but.
Does the 2/3 increase in motor vehicle stops signify anything driving? That's a massive increase in stops.
We've hired 3 or 4 younger officers that are very aggressive, and, no, I think it ebbs and flows.
But this is, don't look at me.
How many times have you pulled over?
Can we break out Anita's
Once, and it wasn't in Chelmsford.
You have the lead foot, don't you?
Yes, let me tell you, chief, the second she told Jim and I, our first question was it in town?
We both said the exact same thing.
We did, yeah.
I was at a full stop, at a light, red light.
Well, it's funny, one of the biggest complaints we get across town, I hear about it from all the, people in town is, my neighborhood, speeding cars, so we constantly reinforce to the officers, proactive, speed enforcement, or any other violations, really. So, we expect the officers to be proactive, and that, not all those result in tickets,
Yeah,
as you can see from
yeah,
the numbers.
yeah,
Most of them result in verbals, conversation, and that's the way we want it.
Yes, that's how I learned, that when you are fully stopped
I was just curious how much
at a
residue
red
in
light,
high
you are
school
not
comes
supposed
out.
to.
So just because they're written doesn't mean that
Yeah,
they're
I
actual
know.
tickets. Some of
When
them
the
are
high
written
school
citations.
gets out,
But the citations are actually way up too.
Yeah, but some of them are
Way to
warnings.
go.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And we don't control, we don't tell the officers what kind of citation to write.
Right.
That's all their discretion, and that's the way we like it.
I do see, like, when the high school
Feels safer when I see
exits, like the intersection of Richardson Road and Old Westford Road. A lot of,
Show your kid when they're getting their driver's
Yeah,
it's kind of skirting out of there pretty quickly.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure, spinning the
Well,
tires.
back when I was in high school, they three cruisers used to sit down Richardson Road, just down the way past the bridge.
Yeah, oh yeah, coming down by Edgelon?
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah.
I remember that,
I
yeah.
used to, that was a spot of mine. That
I
was
can't tell you how many friends got pulled over
an
on that
area I
one.
used to sit
Yeah.
there quite a bit.
Lots, I mean, one after the other.
Yep, yep.
Can I ask you on the resource officer, if we had one middle school versus the two, like if we were structured just differently, would you still need two police officers, or would you think one would be
No, I'd be happy
sufficient?
with one being there.
There's one at the high school. It's
Yeah, I have
got
one at the high
same
school,
number of
right,
kids,
right,
yeah.
yeah. No, it's just that, it's a different location, it's a
No,
different
I
environment,
don't
yeah.
disagree, I was just
Yeah.
kind of.
No, I think one would be just like we have one at the high school, I wouldn't wanna.
So you're thinking if we get the MSBA application approved, we build a brand-new high school over off of Graniteville, and we
I'm
make
just
the,
bu- I'm just
we make the
building
middle
the
school,
case
the
to
old
sell
high
it, right?
school,
I'm
we
just
tra-
kinda-
we make the
Okay, see, now-
Parker
now you've
and
just jumped down the
elementary.
rabbit
We
hole.
shut down McCarthy. Now, when we shut down McCarthy, we can put a fire station there, close down north and west.
You're freaking out people at home right now.
I'm freaking.
There are people at home going, what is he
Amina,
talking about?
You just realized I talked past my lifetime.
I think you might have talked past your daughter's life. Your grandmother's going, what is he talking about?
No, she knows.
All I want to say is, my daughter, who's now a graduate student, was in kindergarten when I found out that there needed to be massive repairs to all the buildings in Chelmsford. So, here we sit.
Yep.
Hey, all our heating's working. Better than some of our surrounding communities.
What did you say, all our heating is
All our
working?
heating's working, yeah.
You're such a wise guy.
Hey, you know, just saying. Any other questions?
Thanks, chief.
All right, thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
No idea what to do with my agenda.
Oh, the library, do you want to pass those down? Oh, I guess you're not looking.
No,
I
I'm
passed
not
around,
looking
the
at anything.
library gave me a copy of their, when I met with her. So there should be extra documents on the table to be passed down.
Okay. So now we have public comment, and I don't think we have any public comment. Just in that, while we're at the public stage, I didn't put on the agenda this week a discussion about our schedule. Just next week, we have a couple groups coming in. We have the library coming in, we have Neshoba Valley coming in, and we have Linda coming in. And Linda has, I think, 4 warrant articles as well.
Well, I just noticed that when I met with her, we went over the various items, but on the facade and signage, that is Evan Belansky, and he hasn't even presented to their group yet.
Oh, well then.
So should we push her back?
Right, that's the only one they haven't come to grips with, yeah.
Yeah, he hasn't even,
So should we push her back?
Linda agreed to put it on the warrant, but they haven't decided whether they have the vote.
Well, no, what we'll do then in that case is we'll have actually Evan come in and talk to us. Later on.
Ready, okay.
But we'll still have her talk about the recreation and open space improvement grants, the affordable senior housing over 86 Richardson, and the barring tennis.
Well, we have a pretty
Conversion
full-
from 2 tennis courts to a tennis court and a pickleball court.
I just learned what pickleball was this week.
It's
I never heard of that.
I never heard of it. She described it as, it's a
Apparently it's-
tennis-like game for older people because it's a narrower.
The ball doesn't
and
bounce as
shorter
far.
area, and you just use some sort of.
It looks like a ping
paddle
pong,
ball.
a big ping
So
pong
it's for
paddle.
older people who don't want to move around, apparently, but it's
Well, that
popular.
sounds like fun.
It sounds like fun. So next week's pretty full.
Next week is pretty full.
And then we have a date for the school
I was
department.
just gonna say,
For what?
School
Jay
department.
said he could come on
The 14th?
the 14th. Was that the date? I
Yeah,
wrote
that
it
was the
down on
date,
my
yeah.
agenda.
Yeah. I have the DPW and all of their different departments and stuff on there for that date as well. So that would work well if we have the school and the DPW
On the 14th.
on the 14th.
He said he'd like to come on the 14th.
Yeah. And then after that, all we have are the various little warrant articles that are not associated with the budget. The biggest of which being the drive-through rest area from the ZBA. So the zoning, I'm sorry, not from the ZBA, from the board of, the planning board. I have on there ZBA because it's a change to the zoning bylaw amendment, not a zoning board appeal. So, yeah, no, we're in good shape. We can either try to.
What's the last meeting that we can have people present?
28, well, we could technically have the 28th people present and then vote that night.
We were hoping to have discussion and
Just
voting that
discussion
night,
and voting
right,
that
okay.
night, so that we're not here until midnight.
So all these that don't, these warrant articles that don't have dates, is that gonna be like the 14th?
Yeah,
Or like
or the
split between-
21st.
Oh, the 21st, right. I'm
21st is
jumping
wide
all week.
open right now.
Yeah.
I mean, theoretically, if we're able to have everything done, I don't think we will be, by the 14th, and have the rest of the discussion that night, we could vote the 21st and have an extra week to get everything together, get the book
So poor
together.
Pam's not under a crunch?
Well, she still will be.
Well, actually, we have till the April 4th as the latest you can do recommendations, so there's plenty of time.
Why do we have so much time this year?
When's the town meeting?
This year.
Yeah, when, isn't town meeting
It's
late?
not a heavy warrant this year.
Well, that's true, too.
yeah,
There aren't that many
Yeah.
warrants that are big, I mean, we had a couple of big warrant issues last,
But it's, yeah,
We
there's
had,
nothing,
I
anything.
think, 2 whole nights of our meetings taken up with warrants.
yeah. Okay.
I forgot about the 21st, though, so sorry about that.
Are there gonna be any amendments to the budget that you're foreseeing, that anything big? No, just very, very small, okay. And then, probably no funding for collective bargaining agreements.
Right, and there'll be a pretty good sized consent agenda, and a couple of those DPW sewer articles aren't going to be moved. So it's even, the ones on the Progress Ave and the I think there's going to be no action taken.
Oh, really? Okay, well, we're meeting with them tomorrow, so we'll talk about that, yeah.
Like I said, it's really, I think, like we sort of joked about, we were serious, but we sort of saved it up to February. And so,
Yeah.
So we'll probably look at 2 nights and see if we'll,
Oh, that's crazy, okay.
On Neshoba, have you guys met with Neshoba?
Yes.
Yes.
Did we get a copy of, their, financial statements?
Yes.
Was that emailed to us?
Yes.
Okay,
I
thank
can
you.
resend it.
No, that's all right, I'll just look, I'll scan back.
Well, I do
because
have, I think it's posted, so they have it all online now, but she did send
The link.
an email version that I will forward again, but I sent a link that they have.
Okay, so I'll just scan through, because one thing I had, we now have 6 students in their postgraduate program, which is actually 3% of our enrollment at Neshoba. So that's something I'm gonna wanna talk about next week, is what other students are in postgraduate from the other schools, but now 3% of our enrollment in Neshoba is postgraduate students.
Really?
Yeah, 6 of them. So eventually, that's gonna be a significant issue.
I think we had 6 last year, if memory serves. but our enrollment came down, so obviously the percentage would go up, but
Yeah,
I thought we had 6 last year.
I'll have to look, but I asked Dave to get me the numbers when he went to the breakfast, and he sent me the numbers of our students by year, and we have, as of this year, we have 6 in the postgraduate. I thought we had 3 last year, but I could be wrong.
Can't remember. I know that's all broken.
Yeah, I don't think we had 6. I think we had like 3 or 4.
Last year?
Last year.
Last
This year
It
it's
was
6.
lower last year, 'cause I remember commenting about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I voted against it because we didn't charge for it last year.
I know she
you
breaks
did.
out all of the enrollment by town. I don't know if it gets into,
They do have that information, and they
Well,
have it in a spreadsheet, but
I know
whether
they have it. I don't, I
Yeah.
can't remember what, I probably have notes on it, but I don't know what level is in the packet that she
Yeah.
put together. But she'll certainly be able to talk to it.
Okay.
Want to vote on those meeting minutes?
Actually, yeah, we tabled the meeting minutes from February 4th because we didn't have a quorum of people that were actually attending that meeting. Because one of us is currently away and you weren't here. So, have you a chance to review the February 4th meeting
The
minutes?
February 4 meeting was the one that, it was like the 4 of us.
Special town meeting.
Special town meeting, yes.
Yes. You're gonna kill me, Pam? I have one small edit. It's one of the edits I made that I didn't need to be made. I must have made it really late at night, and
You want to take back your
it
edit?
makes, I want to take back one edit,
Wait a
yes.
Okay,
It makes no sense.
okay.
I'll show it to you right after we're done. It's,
Wait, are we missing Dave?
yeah, but we have 3 people that were there out of 4.
Oh, okay, so that counts. Got it.
All right, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Thank you. Any press questions? No.
Motion to adjourn?
I don't think we've had a press question in like 3
Okay,
years.
Not since I've been here.
Are
been
we
a
down
long
to the next
time.
agenda? Can I make a motion to adjourn?
I second.
I'd say.
Thank you, great.
All those in
All in favor?
favor?
Aye.
See you next week.